Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Using Mindfulness to Combat Burnout panel. My name is Raquél Pérez, and I'm a NICU nurse. And today I am joined with Diana and Sasha. So, Sasha, you want to introduce yourself, and then Diana, you can follow.
Thanks, Raquel. I'm really excited to be here with both of you. So my training as a mindfulness teacher is primarily with mindfulness-based stress reduction. I'm trained through UC San Diego's School of Medicine, and then their mindfulness-based professional training institute, and then also have added on some MPEAK coach training through UCSD. And I was a competitive athlete for many years, competing internationally in skiing, and so I pull in some of that metaphor, some of that language. I think these metaphors from my time on the Freeride World Tour and the Free Skiing World Tour. So that's a little bit about me to start us off.
Great, nice to have you here.
And I am Diana Winston, and I'm also very happy to be here with all of you. I am the Director of Mindfulness Education at UCLA's Mindful Awareness Research Center. I've been working for the last 15 years developing programs on mindfulness and working to bring mindfulness out into the larger social sphere with, in hospital settings and in education and business settings. But we're at the medical school at UCLA, so we focus a lot on medical and mental health. I'm also the author of several books on mindfulness. I've been practicing it for probably about 30 years.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining. Nurse Wellbeing Week is incredibly important, speaking as a nurse. So today I'm going to be just moderating a few questions for both of you. And the first one is, what is mindfulness to begin with?
I'll start. Okay. I define mindfulness as paying attention to our present moment experiences with openness, curiosity, and a willingness to be with that experience. So it's really about how can we live in the present moment. Much of the time, if you were to check into your mind at any point in the day, you'd probably notice that you were lost in the past, thinking about something, replaying it. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Or in the future, planning, obsessing, worrying, going to the worst case scenario. So we tend to go back and forth between the two. And sometimes we're in the present moment, but we're in the present moment wishing it were a different present moment, kind of, right? So mindfulness is this invitation into the here and now, and it can help us live life in a more connected way, be less burned out, less exhausted. It's a beautiful self-care tool, and it helps us to stay much more present out of anxiety, depression.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and just wanted to pull out that word of connected that Diana used at the end of sort of what this feels like. I think of sort of that presence that nurses have of being with your patients in front of you, and it's that sort of presence and ability to be there versus time traveling through our minds and our thoughts in all the ways that Diana described.
Yeah, and working in a hospital setting, being in healthcare, we talk about mental well-being a lot. But I have found that as a nurse, it can be difficult to not only tell our patients what to do, but to take on those practices ourselves because we're always helping. So, in both of your opinions, what does mindfulness do to help bring you to that extra step for total well-being?
Okay, I'll jump in with this one. It really trains these regions of the brain related to focus and self-awareness, or that ability, interoception, that ability to feel the internal signals of the body, and from that resilience, this ability to kind of bring ourselves back when we're thrown off course or triggered. And so I think those are some pieces, kind of moving with intentionality throughout your day, able to use all this great information that comes from the signals of your senses, your body, of sensing and noticing people and the environment around you, in order to be more responsive, kind of deliberate with actions, versus reactive and kind of on autopilot.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of good science looking at how mindfulness impacts our body and brain, and The science is still young. It's a young field, but there's probably now maybe 6,000 or 7,000 studies. Some of looking at the things Sasha was mentioning, and there's science looking at the impact on the healing response, on stress-related conditions like blood pressure and inflammation-related conditions. There's very good research on looking at mindfulness and its impact on helping people with chronic pain. And then also anxiety and depression has the most robust research, but also impacts attention. There's even mindfulness research looking at how it can impact pro-social behavior or altruism. So there's a lot, plus some neuroscience looking at how it actually impacts or changes the brain. Like one of my favorite studies that was done a number of years ago, one of the early studies was looking at the brains of advanced meditators, seeing how they compare with people of the same age range. Because as you age, your brain thins out, right? We know this is called age-related cortical decline. So but the advanced meditators, we weren't seeing that happen. We weren't seeing it in a particularly couple of different areas, the prefrontal cortex and the insular cortex. And as you all are nurses, I'm sure you know, but this is like very important, the CEO of our brain, kind of the prefrontal cortex. And how do we build that capacity for flexible thinking, delayed gratification, as Sasha was pointing to, not being so reactive, working memory, all of these are positively impacted, or at least thicker in the long-term meditators. So mindfulness can have a lot of implications for both physical and mental health and just general sense of well-being.
Right. Now, in healthcare, burnout is a hot topic. We talk about burnout a lot. Nurses experience burnout quickly. It can happen very frequently. So, in both of your opinions, what are some practical ways we can use mindfulness to help combat burnout, especially for nurses that are really newer to the profession and don't know what to expect?
Want to take it, Sasha?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And for this one, I'll pull from that sort of athlete parallel of training the physical body. In order to sort of depersonalize this in a way. So we've had a word for burnout for a very long time in sports, and it's overtraining, which I love that, because it's like I've overtrained, and so it's not about it makes it so that burnout is not about me and my ability to handle stress or lack of that, or it's really kind of this load between balance between stress load and renewal activities to offset it. And so I find that helpful. That's sort of why I love pulling in some of the science and the neurophysiology, is just to make it so it doesn't feel so personal, like any human system in these conditions might experience this. And so I think things like getting really familiar with your own kind of stress signature, like what are those key ways that when I'm stressed or I'm getting there, I'm noticing these sensations in my body. Maybe I'm noticing different thoughts or different emotions, different behaviors or impulses. So for example, if my arms are buzzing and I am having thoughts of blaming everyone other than myself, I know that I'm getting stressed. I'm on my way there. I'm already kind of off and running. And by really sort of exploring past situations to figure out your own signature, we can start to spot these quicker and then maybe intervene a little bit earlier, so that accumulation of stress isn't able to build on top of itself so much, and we can take moments to sort of diffuse that, maybe grab a renewal activity and start to offset that stress before it becomes chronic. That's one, and then I'll let Diana jump in here.
It's so great what you're saying, Sasha, and I just want to. Sorry, there's a noisy dog in the background. I don't know if you hear it. So I just want to say that burnout is something that we're all experiencing, right? Like right now, there's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling burnout. I think what's happening is we're living in the midst of a big cultural trauma, and you nurses are on the front lines of this, right? And so there's some expectation, whether it's an inner expectation or an expectation that's coming at you from your, your place of work. It's like, okay, I should have it all together. I shouldn't burn out. But that is not the case. So I just want to really take a moment to pause and say, if you are feeling burned out, if you are exhausted, overwhelmed, reactive, yelling at your kids more, there's so many different forms of this. This is appropriate reaction. This is to a cultural trauma. And that burnout is something that, as Sasha was pointing to, we can absolutely work with it. And we can change our response to the stress, and we can get tools to cope with it, but not to think that something is wrong.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and you bring up a good point. We're all going through a huge traumatic cultural shift, and nurses are at the forefront of it. So, with that in mind, what are some tools or maybe some practices or methods that we can use at the bedside to bring mindfulness into our strategy, into our profession, so that we're either experiencing burnout less or not experiencing it at all, or helping with it?
Well, let me start with tools that one can do when you're not on the bedside working with a patient, so that you build that skill set. And then Sasha can, talk more about things that you can do on the spot. So mindfulness is one of many tools that help with burnout, right? So of course, our biggest interest is that you have some self-care tool, whatever that may be. Okay, and it may not be mindfulness. Mindfulness doesn't have to be for every single person. But if you're interested in mindfulness, mindfulness is cultivated through a meditation practice, typically. It's also a quality of attention that you could have at any moment. It's a quality of attention that you could have at any moment that you could bring to your life and your day. So mindfulness, if you're interested in cultivating, developing it, it starts with a basic meditation practice. And this is something that people do typically I start people with 5 minutes a day. Like, you don't have to do it for hours and hours to meditate, but just to get going, like 5, sometimes if people work themselves up to 10, 15 minutes. And you may not have time. I'm acknowledging that we all have these super busy lives, and not only do we have our nursing responsibilities, but we have all of our family responsibilities and everything else that's going on. But typically 5 minutes can work, and for most people. And what you do is try to do it at the same time each day, like right when you get up, or perhaps before bed. And it can even be used to help you sleep. So there is some research showing that it's helpful with insomnia. But if you're doing it to help learn the skill of mindfulness, I recommend being somewhat wakeful to do it. And you can listen to an audio recording. So we know on the Keener app, there's some meditations. We have meditations connected to our UCLA Mindful app, and there's other resources. But what we thought would be good to do here is just to give you a taste right now of a mindfulness meditation. So you can try it out for yourself and see how you respond. Shall we do it?
I love that.
Okay.
Yes, let's go for it.
Okay. So I just invite you, wherever you are, get comfortable, and feet on the floor if that's possible, back upright, doesn't have to be rigid or tight. Your hands are resting wherever they're comfortable. And your eyes can be closed unless that doesn't feel okay to you, in which case it's fine to leave them open, just looking downward so you're not too distracted. Let's begin by taking a few deep breaths. And as we take these deep breaths, allowing yourself to settle a bit, noticing what's happening in this moment for you, coming more fully into the present moment. You can feel your feet on the ground, noticing the touch, the weight, the heaviness, hardness, softness. Notice your legs on the chair, where you feel the pressure, maybe the bottom of your thighs touching the chair. Heaviness, warmth, pressure. You can notice your back against the chair. Your stomach. If your stomach tense or tight, you can allow it to soften. Maybe take a deeper breath. Let your hands be soft, your arms and shoulders soften. Letting your face and facial muscles relax a bit. And just noticing what's happening in our body in this present moment, taking a breath, softening, finding a place of ease. You might notice that your body is breathing. Can you feel the rising and falling of your abdomen or chest, expanding and contracting with each breath? Just the natural breath, in and out through your nose. You might feel the air moving through your nose, tingling, warmth, coolness. So let's find something to focus on. You might notice your breath in your abdomen, chest, or nose. You could bring your attention back down to your feet and notice there's changing sensations, tingling, warmth, coolness. So pick whichever of these is the clearest or the easiest. If you can't decide, they all work equally well. And now let's notice our breathing or the sensations in our feet, moment after moment, breath after breath. One breath ends, the next breath begins. As you do this, you might find that your attention starts to wander. You start thinking about all sorts of other things. And if that happens, you're not doing anything wrong. It's completely normal. When you notice your attention has wandered, say a soft word in your mind like thinking or wandering, and then gently redirect attention right back to your focus, back to the breath or to your feet. And then you'll do that over and over. I'm going to stop talking for about 1 more minute. You can try it in silence and see what happens. As we bring the meditation to a close, notice how you're feeling inside. You're feeling more relaxed, at ease, restful. If you are, really enjoy that and let that be here. And if you're feeling something other than that, just be curious about what you are feeling, letting whatever is here be here. We're not supposed to be feeling a certain way, we're just learning to be present with ourselves exactly as we are. So whenever you're ready, take one more breath with awareness, and then you can open your eyes if they're closed or end the meditation.
That was great.
How'd it go for you, Raquel?
I feel definitely a lot more relaxed. I always love meditation sessions like that because it definitely provides grounding, and I feel very grounded right now. So thank you
Mm,
for leading that.
absolutely. Mm.
And Sasha, I know that you also have some practices and meditation background, but I was curious to know if you have any suggestions on something similar to this, a mindful moment, but for nurses at the bedside, maybe actually at work, if there's anything we could do like this.
Absolutely. And I'd also like to, as we think of kind of these at the bedside, I'll call them integrated practices,
Mm.
and sort of what we just did with Diana maybe can be called a formal practice, or, when we really carve out time deliberately just to do that practice versus at the bedside we're bringing this way of paying attention to whatever we'd already be doing, walking in and out of patients' rooms, washing our hands, putting our PPE on, kind of at the same time, we're also practicing. Um, so, with that, before I kind of instruct in some examples of that, I think it's so important to understand too that with this practice, we're not trying to feel relaxed or calm or any special way. I know Diana mentioned that before, but just because some of the nurses that I've worked with and other clients that I've worked with, have shared this concern of feeling like I'm going to lose my edge, or something
Mm.
like that. This actually enhances that ability to, sense and be in tune with your own experience and others around you, patients, sensing sort of what is kind of needed, or a patient's where they're at, what's going on with them. This amplifies that ability that you already have with this awareness. So you don't need to feel calm and relaxed and blissed out all the time. We know that the reality of a nurse's day is you're getting triggered all the time. And so it's not
Yeah.
like I never get triggered. It's okay, I notice when that happens and I see it, and then maybe I can respond to it in a certain way. So that doesn't go away. Just wanted to bring that piece up to normalize it. But yeah, I think of similar to this sort of picking a time, same time, kind of day after day to do a formal practice. I think routine is really helpful in some of these integrated practices as well. And so I think of this idea of sort of pre and post, an important moment in your work or in your day. And so if we're thinking of, like, I'll call it a performance event, and I kind of pull this from that framework of an athlete life of I had, a start gate and kind of a finish line. And there are these sort of rituals or routines I could do before to get ready, sort of focus maybe on my values or some intention to move through that event with, and then to sort of either celebrate at the end or shake it off, to have these rituals to kind of shake off our day. Whatever happened, we move on and we're ready for what we have to do next. So this idea of kind of a pre-performance ritual, a post-performance ritual, it can look really different for each individual. And also your performance event might be, if we're calling it that, might be different across different areas. It could be going into the OR, or maybe your performance event is your whole shift, but having some way to check in with mind and body before and after. And so that might look like, maybe it's just walking into a patient room quickly. I'm checking in if I notice what thoughts are going through in my mind, if any, and if there's an emotion there, I name it, just like in the formal practice. And I can remind myself of something that I want to hold at the forefront of my mind. It could be a value. I'm here to serve my patients. It could be an intention, sort of like a focused goal of I'm going to bring focus to this procedure, kind of whatever sort of helps to guide me through that key moment where I want to perform at a high level. And we can do this on the fly. We'll try one at the end today, really, really short. But then also important, I think, is that ability to have that routine or ritual at the end of that performance moment or shift, or particularly difficult patient or family or procedure that requires an extra amount of focus. So again, it's checking in with mind, noticing maybe thoughts, any emotions present, checking in with my body, any sensations I feel, and then having a way to shake it off. And that can be a physical gesture, maybe something silly, like I kind of do, like flick, I don't know if you can see me, but flick water off my fingers, like shake it off. It could be like bringing it back. Or it could be something that gives a little care of, maybe some compassion for this. Or that compassion could be a reminder as a line of thinking in my mind of, you're a powerhouse. You did your best. You're here to serve your patients. Again, whatever can kind of respond to what happened as we shake it off, clean the slate, and move on. And so I really encourage some routine with that, doing the same thing to kind of build it in to pre and post. And as far as on the go, when something happens, you get triggered or something's challenging, a difficulty shows up, I think the body is a really great resource for us. So I think that sometimes nurses and athletes and many other professionals are so good at sometimes tuning out the signals of our bodies and actually paying attention to what is going on around us or what others need or patients need. And so we're actually not really attending to those signals. So we really want to practice moments to notice sensations in our body. That gives a lot of good information about emotion, even information about others' emotions, that empathy. And the body can also be a way to, when we are lost in thought, getting pulled away in thought, we can just sort of notice the thought, drop it, and come back to the body. We did that in the meditation with Diana with the breath. We feel the breath in the body. So we can do that on the fly as well throughout our day, sort of whenever we're realizing we haven't checked in with our bodies in a while, or there's kind of that maybe a critical line of thinking. I see that. Okay, I'm going to come back to feeling my feet against the floor, something I can feel.
I love that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I love that, and I totally agree that we should be aligned body and mind, especially as nurses.
And just to add, it's not easy to do, especially in the midst of your busy shifts with a million things going on. And
right.
I love what Sasha was saying about bringing a little compassion for yourself, because it's really easy to get perfectionist and start judging. Oh, I should have done it this way or that, or I'm not being mindful. What's wrong with me? Or so. So these little kind of moments and Sasha will give us some examples. I wanted to share one research study that I was thinking about, that where they were trying to see how people felt when they were in the present moment. So what happens is, if you go into your shift and you're like worried about the patient and stressing out and thinking, you're going to not be too happy, right? It's challenging, it's hard. Or if you're worried about something that happened at home, what's going on with your kid's school or your spouse or your partner, it can be very hard to be in the present moment. And yet, when we can learn to come into the present moment, there is significantly more ease, sense of well-being. So again, lots of compassion, not judging yourself when you're not there. The study I was thinking of was done with, they had thousands of people that they buzzed on their smartphones at random intervals in the day. It was like 2,500 people who were just asked 3 questions when the smartphone would buzz, and it would say, what are you doing? Is your mind on it? And how are you feeling? And what they saw was that about half the time, I think it was like 49.6% of the time, we're not in the present moment. We're thinking about other things, we're worrying or planning, whatever. We're not in the present moment. And then when we're not in the present moment, what happens? How are people feeling? So the research showed that we go to one of 3 areas. We either go to where it's pleasant thoughts, we go to unpleasant thoughts, or neutral thoughts. So if we're not in the present moment and we're thinking about something pleasant, like what I'm going to do later today when I get off my shift, and that feels exciting and enjoyable, you're not feeling bad. But the other 2/3 of the time, neutral or negative, you're not feeling so good. That's what the research shows. However, if people were able to turn their attention to the present moment, they reported being happier, even if they were doing things they didn't like. So just that ability that Sasha was pointing to, that ability that we practiced in the meditation to let go of where you're lost in the thought and just come into the moment, whether it's to feel your feet on the ground, like Sasha said, take a mindful breath. Even an activity that where you just bring your mind and your body, you align them together, like washing your hands. So you have to wash your hands how many times? Jillions of times in your day. What if instead of washing your hands worrying about the patient, you washed your hand not thinking, but feeling the sensations, the warmth, the tingling, the heat, the wet, and keep bringing your attention back to that moment. Then you'll have 20, 30, 40 mindfulness moments in the course of a day.
Yeah.
Great point. I wash my hands a lot. I can definitely do that.
Mm-hmm. And there's your pre and post before you go in,
right.
after you come out. Yeah.
Right. So with that, ladies, are there any final closing thoughts before we have Sasha lead our final integrated practice example?
I want to bring back just that, also the piece of being reminded of values that are important to you related to burnout. It's not only just stress load. It can also be this feeling that of not having control, or what I do doesn't matter. And so really reminding yourself of what's important to you, why you do the work that you do, and again, kind of leading with that. And having moments to remind yourself of that throughout the day while you're washing your hands and feeling very closely the sensations of that. I think that can be really key too in sort of having this protective buffer in a way against this stress load that's here, this overall load. Yeah.
Diana, any closing thoughts?
Just a reminder first of all, how incredibly hard it is what you're doing, and how grateful like the world is for you right now. And if you can, just kind of piggybacking on Sasha, just really take a time to appreciate yourself. Just a little, even one moment is going to make a difference, and know that you're being appreciated. Like you're not doing this in a vacuum. It can feel very isolating perhaps, but there's so much love and appreciation for all that you do, and just hope that these tools help you to feel less stress, more ease, and well-being as you continue on in this kind of endless, work that is so deeply needed right now.
Thank you. With that, Sasha, would you like to lead us into our final practice?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So this can be an integrated practice that we grab for whenever we need it, or to check in, or maybe at the end of a shift, walking out of a room, walking out of one space into another, a transition, as a reminder to kind of check in. So I'll invite everyone to purposefully remove your eyes from the screen. You don't have to close them, you can, but this is also something that we can just do standing, walking, kind of on the go, or sitting here. And so just checking in with the mind, noticing if there are any thoughts here, or if there aren't really any thoughts that you're noticing. And you might reframe or replace a thought or kind of a storyline with one that's more supportive. Whatever you might want to remind yourself of right now. Something like a value that's important to you. You might check in and notice if there are any emotions here, and you could just name them. If you notice that, checking in with the body, feeling sensations, noticing if anywhere in the body is grabbing your attention, pulling it there, and that there's a sensation you can feel. If there's something to celebrate, even the smallest win, just bringing to mind that from your day, kind of savoring a small win. Or if you notice something in your experience that could use some extra attending to or some care, you can grab for a gesture that shakes it off or adds some care, some compassion. Or you could grab for a reminder in your mind. Something like, you're here to serve your patients. You got this. Whatever it might be that feels supportive. And then just feeling your feet against the floor. And then feeling a couple breaths. And moving forward into whatever comes next in your day. And so you can personalize and pull from any just one of those, or maybe two, as your own integrated practice on the go. And like Diana said, it doesn't have to be mindfulness. With a lot happening, you can go to your go-tos, whatever supports you, to really add some support and renewal.
Well, thank you so much. I'm actually going into work tonight, so I'll use both of what you guys taught today into my shift. But Sasha, Diana, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and appreciated learning from you.
Thanks, Raquel.